Welcome to Panther Pourri, the podcast where we're supposed to talk Panthers hockey, but sometimes we don't. Here are your hosts, Alex Lopez, Jake Langsam, and TJ Peterson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a musical episode of Panther Pourri. I'm your host, Jacob Langsam. Here with me, as always, are my co-hosts, TJ Peterson and Alex Lopez. Joining us today, my guitar. I'm not actually going to play it. The NHL trade deadline has officially passed, and the Panthers came out pretty big from it. Our final haul is something to the degree of Claude Giroux et al., Ben Sherratt, Robert Haig, a sixth-round pick. What am I missing?
The two random players that came with Giroux.
That's the et al. That I added after Giroux because they don't matter.
Yeah, then that's it then.
Okay. Three NHL players, a couple of picks, some no names that probably will never suit up for the Panthers. I think very notably, the Panthers are helping Carolina acquire Max Domi, which is kind of interesting. That's just kind of the big. I mean, obviously, we want to talk about Giroux, Sherratt, the deadline as a whole. But I find it very interesting that we're helping Carolina, who is going to be a rival come round 3 or so.
Yeah, but as Alex brought up earlier off of the recording, they were going to get Max Domi either way, and somebody was going to retain this salary. So you might as well be the one that gets the draft pick. You can leverage the extra cap space now that, according to Frank Saravelli, the Panthers expect Ekblad to be on LTIR for the rest of the regular season. So you have that cap space that you can use to retain on Domi's hit for the remainder of the season, get that extra draft pick. And you might face Carolina in the playoffs, you might not. And if you do, it's going to happen in round 3. You've already won 2 rounds. That's 2 more than you've won in the last 25 years. It's okay.
Not to mention, Carolina's still not better than us.
They are not.
And again, someone help Carolina. You might as well be you. You get a 6th-round pick. Is a 6th-round pick valuable? No, but you've literally traded all of your premium draft assets for the next 3 drafts. So what you need to find volume and just take a whole bunch of flyers and hope you can hit on one of these late rounds.
We already took the most important flyer. Put them ching.
There you go. But yeah, so it's like, all right, get the 6th-round pick, move on. It wasn't the best way to weaponize Ekblad's cap space, but considering what was supposed to be a buyer's market turned into a seller's market with just absurd prices being paid across the board. For example, Brett Kulak was the guy that all the analytics people were saying as hey, this is the sleeper acquisition of the deadline. You can get him for a 4th or 5th round pick. And he just went for a conditional 2nd that I think can upgrade to a 1st. So the prices this deadline were insane. The Panthers kicked it off with the Sherratt overpay. I don't think we need to relitigate that, but everyone has said it was an overpayment. Even the hockey men are saying the Panthers overpaid. So the Panthers kicked it off by overpaying, and then the rest of the deadline was everyone overpaying, except for one convenient trade, the Claude Giroux trade.
Which was on market. I wouldn't say that we underpaid for Giroux.
Yeah, I mean, we
would. I mean, we still gave up a 1st-round pick and a reasonably highly maybe not reasonably highly coveted prospect.
No, I would say that. Yeah, I mean,
even Philadelphia was trying to not get Owen Tippett.
We don't know that.
And it was reported that they were trying to go for Denisenko, and Zito was like, "We want you to take Tippett."
I don't think that was a blue. I don't think that came from a blue check mark.
Tippett. I think it did.
I don't think so.
The fact that Tippett's hair matches the orange of the Flyers jersey is what sealed it for Fletcher.
Yeah, but you are right to reference the fact that Claude Giroux did use his no movement clause and all of its leverage to make sure that he got to Florida. He didn't want to go to the Rangers or Boston because he didn't view them as legitimate contenders. He didn't want to go to Colorado because that was too far away from home. Florida was both close to home and a legitimate contender, and he made sure Fletcher knew about it. Now, there was a report that he would have been willing to go to any of those teams if Fletcher had just made him reassured that he was coming back in the offseason. Reportedly, Fletcher said no to that, but his agent, Pat Brisson, did poo-poo that to Greg Wyshynski, maybe in just a more general statement.
Of course he did.
Yeah,
That may or may not be true.
The agent's not going to be like, actually, that's correct. We did want to kind of be an asshole about it.
They can't say no comments. So anytime they do comment, it is, worth mentioning.
Well, that's what essentially
in a second. But go ahead.
Yeah, but by no commenting, you're essentially confirming it. So by the denial is essentially a no comment. And of course, he's not going to say that because it gets rid of any leverage Giroux has in the offseason. I mean, yes, if he wants to go back to the Flyers, the Flyers are going to realize that and can lowball him if they want. But like, you just can't say, oh yeah, I'm going to a new team, but I definitely want to go back home in the offseason. Like, you just can't do it. It may be the truth, and it's honestly what I expect and what I would think most people expect to happen. It's just not something that can be public right now.
Yeah, so not really sure what all of this means for future seasons. What we do know is that the Panthers have traded 3 first-round picks since the draft. So they're all in, if all in has ever meant anything. This is what all in looks like. They only have 1 second-round pick in the next 3 drafts, and I think only 2 third-round picks.
I will say though, like looking back, if you were to tell me before, like on draft day, basically, hey, the Panthers are going to take Mackie Samoskevich today, but then you won't have a first round pick for 3 years. But what you will have is Sam Reinhart and Claude Giroux. Even ignoring Ben Sherratt, if you said you won't have a first round pick for 3 years, but you will have Sam Reinhart and Claude Giroux, I would be very happy.
The Sam Reinhart
absolutely.
We're seeing is worth 2 first round picks.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're with Devin Levy's season, you're seeing that he was worth a first round pick in terms of how he's developed and how he's
goalies are weird. You never know what he's going to look like in the NHL. You should know that better than either of us, Alex.
You're not wrong. You're absolutely right. I'm just saying that pick is still going to be a win from the Panthers unless, whoever they draft in the first round or Levy becomes an all-star caliber player, which is unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
But that trade went from like, holy shit, the Panthers robbed the Sabres blind to, okay, the Sabres did all right considering Levy looks outstanding in college this year. And honestly, he should have been the starting goalie for Team Canada in the Olympics. The fact that he didn't start a single game is ridiculous.
Ryan Bednard also looked fantastic in college hockey. And where is he now?
Yeah, but he was playing in a lesser conference.
TJ, don't ruin my point with your facts.
I'm just shocked you're poo-pooing a Jewish prospect.
What I'm trying to do is talk up Sam Reinhart.
Well, you don't need to poo-poo Levi because Reinhart has been outstanding in every facet of the game. Power play, penalty kill, even strength. He's done great everywhere.
Well, he doesn't make winning plays, though, TJ. He doesn't make winning plays.
You know, I didn't consider
He's also the
that.
highest paid Panther.
Yeah, I didn't consider either of those non-facts. So sorry about that.
That's the easiest tweet to dunk on. But trade deadline. We're not here to talk about how great Sam Reinhart is. We're here to talk about the Panthers trade deadline.
Speaking of former Sabres, on Sunday,
Robert
the Panthers
Haig
traded a 6th round pick for defenseman Robert Haig, who, I never thought he was any good. So I guess that it's really just a depth move. But, maybe they see something in him. It certainly doesn't seem like they are using the same analytics that are available to the public to evaluate defensemen, because if they were, I'm sure they wouldn't have given up a first round pick for Ben Sherratt, and Robert Haig probably wouldn't have been a trade target for them, but they probably have their own internal metrics that they use. Their access to proprietary data is much, there's much more of it than we have. And they decided to go after this guy as, somebody that they can slide into the lineup while Ekblad is recovering from his injury, which is not going to be season ending. It will be regular season ending, though, as far as we are led to believe by Frank Saravelli. So Robert Haig is going to help fill the lineup in the meantime. And at a 6th round pick, it's basically no cost.
One thing I will say about Robert Haig, if we see him, we're in trouble. Like, it's one of those pickups where if he actually gets minutes, there's a problem.
Well, he's going to get minutes, I would imagine.
You think
he's going to get minutes in the regular season? Yeah,
in the regular season, he's going to get minutes.
I don't think he's one of our 6 best defensemen, even with Ekblad out.
Yeah, I don't either, but I still think he's going to get minutes.
We're gonna see like Uyghur Forsling, Sherratt Montour, and what, Carlson Gudis. I mean,
I think they're gonna.
Does Robert Haig fit in there?
I think they're gonna, mix and match to see what they have, because
The only one of those 6 defensemen that's even viably removable is Lucas Carlson, and even that I disagree with, but he has kind of been in and out of the lineup over the past couple of weeks.
I'm just saying, with 20-ish games left in the season and the Panthers kind of building a comfortable lead on the division, now is the time to be experimenting to see what you have.
Okay.
Maybe Robert Haig and Gudas are an amazing shutdown pairing that nobody knew existed. Kind of like, look, not to break tradition of shitting on Eric Goodbranson, but did anyone see Eric Goodbranson having a bounce back season in Calgary this year? No. But they found a mix that works, and they've turned an absolutely disastrous asset into a viable bottom pairing defenseman.
You could have used Sam Bennett.
Okay, Sam Bennett, Brendan Moss, where absolute garbage can, give you a little bit of a glimmer of hope or something. Like, now is the time to be experimenting, and I want to talk more about that before we wrap this pod.
My one question to finish up on Robert Haig is: do we think he slots in ahead of or behind Petteri Lindbaum?
I would guess ahead of at this point.
I would guess ahead.
I've not been impressed with Petteri Lindbaum. He makes some great open ice hits, but he's been very slow on the play.
He's also
very poor anticipation.
That means a lot to this organization.
Yeah, but I don't know. He was better in his last game he played,
yes, he was.
Or his last couple of games. But like his first few games, he was just completely behind the play. I'm hoping your Robert Haig can be better than what Petteri Lindbaum.
Okay, so we gave up a 6th round pick for a 7-8 defenseman, depending on when Aaron Ekblad comes back.
Those are the trades you'd need to be making, because let's say there's a rash of injuries round 1 of the playoffs. Do you want Matt Kiersted in the lineup?
Well, that goes back to what I said originally. If we really see him, it means that there's a problem. That's what I really meant by that.
Yeah, and I think TJ will agree with that. And TJ, I definitely do. But like the regular season, we're going to see him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. Something fun to point out about Robert Haig legitimately is that he has the best goals against per 60 on the penalty kill of any Sabres defenseman. And it's pretty sizable. Yeah.
Interesting.
So he might be a useful penalty killer for the Panthers.
That's interesting. Okay.
And you definitely know that they have had their issues there. So it might be nice to get him in there. Now, I will say that Mark Pesek is ahead in terms of expected goals against, but Haig is still second there. So he's been pretty useful on the penalty kill.
So he's a good penalty killer. So I take back everything. I'm glad we traded for him, and I hope we see him.
Yeah, and you'll never know what getting out of a black hole like Buffalo will do to a player. Cough Sam Reinhart, cough Brandon Montour.
Yeah, I was going to say, we actually have 2 very good examples of that.
Yeah. He was in Philly before where he also stunk, but same thing with Philly.
True.
Guys, Claude Giroux is a Florida Panther. He went from just dragging trash players to he's now on a line with Barkov and Carter Verhaeghe.
How do you beat the Florida Panthers forward group now? Like, are the Panthers going to go undefeated for the last 20 games of the season?
No.
I feel like we might.
I'm going to say no.
You hope the Panthers just hit every single post, every single game, and that's how you beat them in a 7-game series, because Jesus Christ, this forward group is ridiculous.
I'm hoping that we hit lots of posts in the regular season, get it out of our system.
True. Let's just run down what the Panthers forward lineup looks like, because I already ran down the defense a little bit and talking about where Haig fits in. So we would anticipate, when everyone's healthy, the lines to look like Giroux, Barkov, Verhaeghe, which already best first, there is not a better line, period. Second line is Huberdeau, Bennett, Duclair, the famous 9-1-1 line that lit up the world last year.
And has been very good this year. Not as good, but very good.
Third line is Marchment, Lundell, Reinhart.
And I have to step in.
Nuts.
I have to step in. You said that Giroux, Barkov, Verhaeghe will be the best line in the league. Not so fast. We have the best line in the league already.
That's true. Marchment, Lundell, and Reinhart have been absolutely dominant. You ever notice how Mason Marchment kind of stopped scoring once Anton Lundell went down?
Yeah, sad to see.
But no, that just goes to show how well those two work together.
Yeah.
So Marchment, Lundell, Reinhart that's a second line. That's just playing on the third line. And then Lomberg, insert fourth line center here and Hornquist. Like, even that, Lomberg has been incredible for maybe not incredible. He's put together 2 very strong seasons with the Panthers. Hornquist in limited usage has been good enough. And then Etu, Achari, Joe Thornton, like, as your fourth line center, how do you beat that forward group?
Shout out to goal scoring phenom Joe Thornton.
I mean, he has 5 goals on the season. It feels like he's played 12 games.
Yeah, we got to get him to 41. Play him every game for the rest of the year.
I'm very curious now to see what Joe Thornton's goals for per 60 minutes is, because I bet it's actually pretty good.
Look at the power play one, because he's got 3 power play goals. That's pretty remarkable.
Either way, this forward group is by far the best in the NHL. I know, TJ, you retweeted someone who was saying that Tampa's forward group is amazing because they did a lot in the deadline. They basically completely
we should talk about that, by the way. But go ahead.
Completely remade their third line. Let's talk about it right now.
Okay.
They brought in Brent Hagel from Chicago, and that cost
Brandon
them
Hagel,
a lot.
by the way.
Brandon Hagel, that cost them a lot. Or here, you tell.
They call him Bagel.
Yeah, so they gave up
quick interjection. All situations, Joe Thornton has the 8th highest goals per 60 on the Panthers.
Very nice. So you know what? You need that guy in your lineup. Anyway, Brandon Hagel went from the Blackhawks to the Lightning for 2 first-round picks in the next year's draft and the draft after that. Much like the Panthers, they traded their 23 and 24 first-round picks, along with 2 forwards that are 23 and 24, Taylor Radish and Boris Kachuk. And in return, they get Hagel, obviously, and 2 fourth-round picks in those drafts. So Hagel's a guy that's really popped off this year. He's got, I think, 18 goals, something like that. And he's signed for the next 2 seasons after this to $1.5 million average annual value. So they're getting a guy that can contribute on their third line for 3 years. And we kind of talked about how this is how Tampa Bay has maneuvered at the trade deadline. You know, obviously everybody talks about Coleman and Goodrow, who they got at the 2020 deadline. They were signed for another season. They won back-to-back cups with both those guys. So they got Hagel for the next 3 seasons. And Hagel's, that's a scary player to have to go up against on the third line, because he's putting up a 30 goal campaign right now on a bad team, on the Blackhawks, and strong underlying numbers. Now, not great defensively, but you don't necessarily need him to be. You probably feel okay about what you're putting around him. Now, on the other hand, Nick Paul, who admittedly they only gave away Matthew Joseph in a 4th-round pick, so the return was definitely not as strong. But Nick Paul is an NHL forward. That's what I would say. He's an
NHL power forward. He's a guy. He's fine.
Yeah. I never understood the clamor for Nick Paul at the deadline. People were talking about, will Ottawa sign him? Will Ottawa trade him? Have you considered that no one cares? Because we're talking about Nick Paul.
I mean, you say this and he's going to pop off in the playoffs. So
he's not going to pop off in the playoffs. He's not making it past the second round.
Either way, Tampa completely remakes their third line. And I completely disagree with whoever.
Try and match up with ours. It's not going to work, but they're trying.
Yeah, that is not a very good second line. Whoever tweeted that TJ retweeted. Mm-hmm. The Panthers still have the deepest forward group. But yeah, Tampa, I thought, had a good deadline. They spent but that's the type of move they want to make. They want guys with term that they're going to spend their assets on. And I agree with that mindset, unless you're getting a guy like Claude Giroux, who is widely reported to be, or widely considered to be, the best rental that's been available in quite some time. So I agree with that decision, but the Panthers, I think, still match up really well with Tampa, and we all know. And in a second round series seems inevitable with Tampa, and it's going to come down to Vasilevsky. Can he be a god for enough games to steal the series? And that's not me trying to be cocky about the Panthers, but objectively, the Panthers have been a better team this year.
Well, we have seen Tampa crash and burn in the first round of the playoffs, so I wouldn't put it past them.
Look, I'm not going to talk shit about the back-to-back cup winners right now, but
why? Before they won back-to-back cups, they got swept by Sergei Bobrovsky.
They did. I'm just saying that team is still damn good, but I think the Panthers are objectively better.
Yes.
A lot of it will come down to goaltending for sure, but
what will be fun is the April 26th matchup in Sunrise between Florida and Tampa, which has potential to decide the division.
But I think it's trending towards being a dead rubber.
Yeah, I mean the Panthers are what 6 points at this point. Yeah,
6 points. Tampa has one
got
game in hand. I think it's today against the Hurricanes. It might be tomorrow against the Hurricanes.
Yeah, but 6 points is a lot to make up in 20 games.
Yeah, especially when how many points is Florida going to drop?
Yeah, especially, I mean, look, they have, I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum. They have a very soft schedule to finish the year.
Mhm.
Basically, almost everyone they're playing is just sold. So
The Panthers have 3 games left against Montreal.
They also have 2 games left against Buffalo and 2 games left against Ottawa.
yeah, like there could be some really crooked numbers to finish this season, but we might get 10 finally.
Yeah. Damn, the
I'm
Maple
honestly
Leafs
really
beat us to 10. Can't believe it.
I love that game ended in like a true football score. That's just really funny.
It is really funny. I had something on this, but I forgot what it was.
Let's laugh. Can we? I know we laughed out of this spaces. Can we all laugh at the Leafs for their goalie acquisition getting claimed by Arizona?
Shout out Harry Sateri, former
The
Panther
Leafs,
legend.
yeah, Panther legend Harry Sateri. I think
I thought that was
Hari,
a good.
actually.
It's Hari, but I thought that was a good sign. I'm like, I saw that come across. I'm like, that's smart by the Leafs.
Yeah.
He was solid for the Panthers. He had a really good Olympics. Like, that's a good low risk swing. And then he goes to Arizona.
And then Arizona was like, we agree. That was a good low risk swing.
Yeah, so Arizona traded Scott Wedgwood. By the way, I thought that was crazy. Scott Wedgwood went for a 3rd round pick if they make the playoffs, which why would you give up a 3rd round pick for Scott Wedgwood?
Yeah, this market was
I
insane.
missed that one. That's hilarious.
Just
I
so
will
many
say, I do
head-scratching
think
trades.
the Leafs did make one of the better trades today, though, acquiring Mark Giordano and Blackwell. I don't think they gave up much. I don't remember what the return was off
2
the top of my
second-round
head,
picks.
but yeah, that's
And a
a
third.
pretty good
And a
trade.
third.
I would have much rather given up that for Mark Giordano than Sherratt.
Well, like I said, though, like all of this is we can play fantasy GM all we want.
that's true.
They were going to do right by Giordano. Giordano said, I want to go back home. I want to play for the Leafs. The Flyers were going to do right by Philly. I mean, they didn't have a choice because he had a no movement clause. He said, I want to, take my talents to Fort Lauderdale Beach or, Sawgrass Mills to be more accurate. But, that's how
I'm
these
taking
things
my
went.
talents to the Everglades.
So, maybe if they called
That's true.
Giordano up and said, hey, you can move your family down to the beach. Doesn't that sound great? He would have been willing to come here. We just don't know, though. What we do know is that he did want to go to Toronto. He was definitely enthusiastic about that. They go out and get Ben Sherratt. I mean, the acquisition cost was objectively less than Hampus Lindholm, and they had the cap space, and they didn't know at the time that Aaron Ekblad was going to go down. He was going to be on LTIR. They were able to keep open the cap space to get Drew at a cut price because of his leverage over them and the no movement clause and such. There you
go. Real quick, what other than the Panthers, what teams did you guys like the deadline moves? If you want, I can go first.
There was one move in particular. I still have to take in every team's all of their moves. But Vancouver going out and grabbing Travis Dermott, I think was a really smart move.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's sad seeing Montreal and Vancouver making smart decisions.
Montreal, sure, but I don't mind Vancouver.
The fan base is obnoxious.
Every fan base is obnoxious when they're good.
They're loud, obnoxious. I mean, just going back.
Alex, let me ask you a question. The Panthers are going to win the Atlantic Division this year with a very good team. How loud are you going to be during the playoffs?
Be fucking loud.
Yeah. Every single fan base has loud, obnoxious fans. We are some of the loudest, most obnoxious Panthers fans.
Fair enough.
So I don't begrudge any team for their fan base. And I love Brock Besser.
Back on topic. And this one pains me to say, whose deadline I really liked? New York.
Gotta have to be more specific.
The Rangers.
The Islanders deadline was horrible.
Yeah,
That
was the joke.
Re-signing bad players. Yeah, there's always a good idea. But
just Lou Lamoriello thing.
Yeah, I really like what the Rangers did. Did they make any impact moves? No, but they shouldn't have been. They have, they're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to go as far as Igor Shesterkin carries them. And
could be very far.
It could be very far. But there were rumors that Drury was, because they had all of this cap space. They had $30 million in cap space. They could have gone into the playoffs with a cap in the 100 million, 110 million with how much cap space they had. but there were rumors that Drury was going to go like all in and spending first round picks and prospects and whatnot, Patrick Kane and all these other huge moves. And I was like, what are you doing? There's no fixing the fact that that's a bad 5-on-5 team. Like, you were not going to buy your way out of that this year. And instead of doing that, he made a whole bunch of low risk acquisitions, Tyler Mott, Frank Vetrano, all of these guys that cost, middle round picks, or they already had a ton of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, hey, if all of those picks help you get out of the first round and, into the second round, you won. You had you got way further than you should have gotten. Now, if it doesn't work, you spent a bunch of mid-round picks where you'll be lucky if one of them ends up in the NHL. So it really cost you nothing. I thought that was a really smart deadline from a GM that was off to a pretty rocky start since he took over.
Andrew Kopp, also the headline acquisition for them, which did cost a second round pick, which is conditional and might become a first, but they would have to reach the conference finals for that to happen.
It's term,
Which
right?
is possible.
I don't like their chances.
I will never doubt Igor, though.
Okay, that's fair.
Thing.
That's fine. I'll pivot to another team now, unless you have other things to say about the Rangers.
That's it. Kopp does not have term, but again, the most they spent was a second round pick that upgrades to a first if they make the conference finals, which I'm sure they're fine with giving up if they make the conference finals.
True.
Team that I like the deadline of was Colorado. I think they needed a right-handed defenseman. They got Josh Manson. Now, Manson hasn't been great in past years, but that's a solid bet for them to send a second round pick and a prospect that probably wasn't going to be able to crack their lineup. And I really like Arturi Lehkonen coming in. They only spend a second round pick. They get his salary retained for this year, and he's an RFA, so they can get him at cost control for next year, or just trade him. If they can't come to reasonable terms, he'll get another good return if they have to trade him at the draft. I think he's a guy that's going to help them defensively. He's going to slide in next to Valery Nichushkin on the Evolving Wild All-Star team, which is increasingly becoming what Colorado is. They didn't need to go out and get a Giroux. They didn't need to. I mean, they tried to, but they didn't need to. The Western Conference for them, it's really just a matter of are they going to implode or are they going to stay healthy? If neither of those things happens, if they don't implode and they don't have a massive injury crisis, they should come out of the Western Conference, or at least they should get to the third round, because I don't really like the chances of anybody in the Central against them. The Flames, I think, are a legitimate contender. Everybody else in the West, I think, is a pretender. So I like what Colorado did.
Okay, well then let's move on. I talked about experimenting earlier, and here's an experiment I want to see now that Aaron Ekblad is injured. And I know there's someone on Twitter who actually has already said this idea, but I promise you did not have it before me. I was just waiting until the podcast to reveal it.
Go for it.
And I want to see I want to see a 5-forward power play. You need to find a way to get Claude Giroux into PP1. And there's really no forward you want to take off of it right now, considering it's clicking. Aaron Ekblad's out. You don't have Brandon Montour is as a power play QB.
In general, also.
Mackenzie Weegar is as a power play QB, as good as he is at 5-on-5 putting up points. He just hasn't shown to be a good power play quarterback. Why can't Sasha Barkov be your power play quarterback? Why not? You can put Giroux in his OV spot. Huberdeau flips to Barkov's old spot, which is where he played last year prior to Ekblad getting hurt. I'm not seeing how that's a problem. I think that would be a damn good lineup. And then, Reinhart and Bennett stay in their current spots.
Duclair now, not Bennett.
Duclair.
Okay, Duclair, excuse me. That's a really good power play. And you're really not going to lose much defensively with Barkov and over Ekblad.
You could argue that you would gain, in fact.
You could.
Yeah. And you have 20 games in the regular season where it really doesn't matter. If it does, I know the concern is, well, what kind of chances are you going to give up against? Well, now's the time to find out.
Right.
Who cares if you give up a couple of shorthanded goals, working out the kinks of a 5-forward power play? You're going to.
Also, are you really doubting the proficiency of reigning Selke winner Alexander Barkov on the point?
No, I'm not.
Not
again,
you, Royal you.
This was something the Panthers tried under Bob Bugner, gave up a shorthanded goal, and then immediately ran away from like it was the bubonic plague. So I want to see it come back.
The bubonic plague.
I want to say that was intentional, but it wasn't. God, I hated Bob Booger.
Well, I do want to point out that we did see 5 forward power play when Yandel was scratched in the playoffs.
Okay.
Because Ekblad obviously wasn't there. Go ahead.
Now is the time to bring it back. You've got the opportunity. You have 20 games to test it out. You have the best forward group in the NHL. Why would you not have 5 forwards on your power play?
That's true.
Before we talk about this a little bit more, do all of you see like Washington as a first round matchup as something that's like legitimately quite desirable? Or are you like Washington, Boston,
probably.
whoever? Because I
Washington,
think I want to play Washington.
I've barely heard anything about Washington this year other than like every time Ovi scores a goal.
They made a couple of forward moves, Marcus Johansson for a 4th, and
they
Johan
traded
Larson
Daniel
for a
Sprong.
3rd.
That was stupid.
I mean, Daniel Sprong has never, like, he keeps getting traded. That might just be like a Jared McCann situation where he's a good player and for some reason nobody recognizes it. But, this is his 4th team now, and he hasn't really solidified a lineup spot on any of his previous teams. I just think in the past 3 seasons, they've gone out in the first round every season. Last season out in 5, season before out in 5, season before that out in 7. So, since they won their cup, this has really become, maybe in previous years it wasn't so much this, but now it's really the Ovi legacy tour. Like they want to get him the goals record and as many other records as they can. They don't care about winning the cup nearly as much as they used to, especially since they have a ring now for Ovi. Like
they're trying to improve the team, but like they don't really have the assets anymore to make big moves. And you're right. Their number one priority is getting Ovi the goals record. I kind of agree with you. If you wanted to say who's the reasonable targets for who's going to be the first round matchup, Boston or Washington. I mean, maybe the Rangers fall off a bit.
Well, here's the question though. Like the way things are going, if you finish first in the East, you're going to be playing Washington, and if you finish behind the Hurricanes, you'll be playing Boston. Like, I think Washington is a much more desirable matchup than Boston.
I agree. That's what I was getting to. I'm agreeing with you that Washington, because Boston, they've got some goaltending issues. They did just add at the deadline. They just picked up Hampus Lindholm, who should help a lot. I don't know about that contract they signed him to.
Yeah, 8-year deal, $6.5 million.
The term is rough, but the money's not that bad.
Yeah, it's manageable. I mean, they're gonna be some lean years. Bergeron might retire. Like, haven't all the indications been that he's going to retire in the offseason?
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it, considering there's been
true. I mean, he's been outstanding this year.
Yeah, he has actually been extremely good especially for his age.
The perfect line just refuses to regress, and it's pissing me off. Like
the perfect line doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Pasternak's not even on it. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, they got Craig Smith on the first line, but it hasn't missed a beat. That's how good it is.
Either way, Marchand and Bergeron have not regressed in their games at all, and it's extremely frustrating. I think the Panthers match up extremely well against both of those teams. I think they would win a series against both of those teams. But I do agree that
I'd be a little more frightened of Boston. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. That's what I was getting to. Boston, because they've got Bergeron and because they got Marchand, who still they still seem to give a shit. While like you said about the Capitals, it's more about the Ovi tour. I think you're gonna have a better first round experience with the Capitals.
Okay, so then you probably do have kind of a tight race against the Hurricanes. They're only 2 points back, but we talked about the Lightning is the next closest team, and they're 6 points back. And, you definitely don't want the Canes catching up to you if you want to play the Capitals. And right now, the Panthers, according to Dom Luszczyszyn's model, and everybody cringes because, Huberdeau and Hart stuff now, but Panthers have an 83% chance of winning the Atlantic Division in the regular season. So you feel pretty good about that. But if playing Washington is something that you really want to secure, then the season becomes a little bit more intriguing. The results become a little bit more important. But still, winning game one of the playoffs.
We still have yet to see 60 minutes without Aaron Ekblad this year. I know we got most of the Anaheim game without him, and Spencer Knight got a shutout. So I guess it still works without Ekblad, but that was also the Ducks. So we still have yet to see a full game without Aaron Ekblad. But then again, we still have yet to see a full game with Claude Giroux. So That might even out.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers defense is definitely going to take a hit without Aaron Ekblad. There's no doubt
Right, but
about
we're going
it.
to score like 40 extra goals per game.
Yeah, you might see the accusation about the Panthers.
Hey, you guys know how you win hockey games? I'll tell you a secret. It's by outscoring your opponents.
Amazing. This is the kind of insight you
Hire
get on the
me.
show. This is the kind of insight you get on the show.
But I mean, I know I've harped on this before. It is incredible that people keep knocking the Panthers. It's like, well, can they prevent goals? It's like, well, they do it at a pretty average.
Who cares? They score better than you.
Well, but the thing is, they're not bad at it. They do it at a league average level, which is fine because their offense is historically good.
Yep.
That's like I said before the deadline. I said, if the Panthers are really in on Claude Giroux, then the strategy is clearly, I dare you to try to score 7 goals against me.
Yeah, because we're going to score 6.
Because that's what you'll need.
Like the Panthers they average, 4.04 goals per game, which is by far the highest in the NHL. And they just added offense without subtracting defense from their forward group.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, Aaron Ekblad being out.
Yeah, Ekblad's a big part of the generation.
R.I.P. Ekblad for Norris.
Right. Their team defense is going to take a hit without Aaron Ekblad, for all you Panthers fans who think Aaron Ekblad is bad defensively. Like, their team defense is going to take a hit now that Ekblad is out for the rest of the regular season. But, yeah, this team is a wagon. Like, Bill Zito should show up to every game for the rest of the season in a covered wagon.
There you go. And I think that's pretty much everything that we got to talk about today relative to the Panthers, relative to the trade deadline. Any parting notes, guys?
Absolute fucking wagon.
Rate us 5 stars on wagon.
I have a parting note.
.com.
OregonTrail.com.
I have a parting note.
Who makes wagons?
It's a G.
Shout out to Jacob's G string.
It's on the E string, but it's a G note.
Oh, okay. Well, you got me there.
That's
well,
my parting note.
as we said, rate us 5 stars on the Oregon Trail because the Panthers are a fucking wagon. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to Panther Pourri.